Let that sit for a moment, because what you are about to hear is not the verdict of some bitter tabloid hack with an axe to grind. It is, by every credible account, the quiet, calculated truth at the very heart of Buckingham Palace and Clarence House. Did King Charles and Prince William genuinely want Meghan Markle's American lifestyle brand to succeed? Absolutely. Not because the wounds have healed, and certainly not because they've forgiven her, but because a commercially triumphant Meghan Markle is a Meghan Markle who stays quietly in California, completely out of the royal family's hair. They wanted her to sell that jam so Harry wouldn't come back to London with an Oliver Twist-style begging bowl, asking, "Please sir, can I have some more?" But what happens when the narrative of effortless, runaway luxury completely collides with a cold, unforgiving wall of numbers? What is unfolding right now behind those glossy Instagram photographs and perfectly lit pantry videos is, by the figures, one of the most spectacular commercial collapses in modern entertainment history. We are talking about a massive $5 million inventory crisis, warehouses full of product with expiration dates ticking down like a countdown clock, and a complete silent evacuation by her primary backer, Netflix. The moment the firm has spent 2 years quietly dreading has finally arrived, and it has left Prince Harry absolutely reeling in Montecito. Is the Sussex well finally running completely dry? Stick around, because by the end of this video you are going to see exactly why independent analysts are suddenly using the word bankruptcy, how a dramatic 48-hour website glitch exposed the raw, unfiltered truth the public was never meant to see, and why that begging bowl scenario might not be a palace joke for very much longer at all. The absolute panic currently reverberating through the pristine hallways of the Montecito mansion is not just palpable, it is entirely financial. For years, the public narrative surrounding the Duke and Duchess of Sussex has been treated like an untouchable, finely tuned Hollywood blockbuster production where every single scene is carefully written, perfectly lit, and aggressively defended by a small army of highly paid publicists. Every single difficult story to emerge from their California compound has always come with a built-in escape hatch, a quick explanation that it was just misreported, taken out of context, or simply invented by a disgruntled former employee with a bitter grudge against them. But there is one thing in this world that you cannot spin, one thing that no amount of slick public relations can reframe into a triumphant success story, and that is a frozen sell-through rate. You cannot rewrite cold, hard arithmetic, no matter how skilled your global communications team happens to be, and right now the math is painting a picture of an absolute, unmitigated disaster. It is a forensic, granular nightmare that has left Prince Harry entirely blindsided, pacing the floors of his estate while trying to understand how a brand that was supposed to establish their ultimate global empire has instead left them sitting on a mountain of unsellable inventory. This entire crisis did not spark from a whisper or an anonymous tabloid rumor, but rather from a massive technical error on the brand's own digital platform that briefly bypassed their entire media apparatus. A temporary 48-hour website glitch accidentally opened a window into the inner workings of the enterprise, exposing the raw, unfiltered truth that the Sussex camp would have given almost anything to keep permanently locked away from public eyes. To fully comprehend the sheer scale of this commercial collapse, you have to look back at the staggering hubris that defined the initial launch of this entire lifestyle venture. When the brand was first unveiled to the world under a wave of massive media fanfare, the ambition behind it was anything but modest. This was never intended to be a small, tasteful boutique sideline or a quiet hobby project to occupy the Duchess's free time between charity events. It was framed from day one as a global retail ecosystem, destined to rival the biggest multi-million-dollar celebrity empires in the world. The grand strategy was incredibly aggressive, promising custom jams and luxury spreads today, high-end homeware and designer candles tomorrow, and eventually an entire consumer empire that would completely dominate the international market. For a very brief, shining moment, it actually looked as though the momentum of their royal titles might carry the project across the finish line. Major fashion and lifestyle magazines that had completely ignored the couple for years suddenly began clamoring for exclusive access, staging glossy photo shoots of curated jam jars catching the perfect golden California sunlight. Their primary corporate backer, Netflix, poured immense financial resources, strategic support, and production infrastructure directly behind the endeavor, fully believing that the global obsession with the royal family could be easily monetized into an ongoing stream of consumer revenue. The confidence radiating from the top of the organization was immense, bordering on complete invincibility, But it was a confidence built on a fundamental, almost comical misreading of how a global consumer goods business actually operates in the real world. What nobody inside the inner circle seemed to grasp, or perhaps what everyone around the Duchess was simply too terrified to tell her directly to her face, is that running a complex retail enterprise requires a completely different discipline than managing public image or acting as a high society influencer. It demands rigorous logistics, highly conservative forecasting, tight supply chain management, and above all, a completely honest relationship with your actual sales data. Instead of testing the market with a cautious, limited batch to accurately gauge sustained consumer interest, the decision was made from the very top to scale up production immediately and with reckless abandon. Stock was ordered from manufacturers not in the hundreds and not even in the thousands but in the hundreds of thousands of units, with production orders eventually climbing into the millions. It was an enormous, high-stakes gamble driven entirely by momentum and a massive collective ego, completely ignoring the basic reality that consumer interest is a highly volatile commodity. They mistook the initial wave of global media curiosity for deep, sustainable consumer demand, assuming that because people were talking about the launch on social media, those same people would continuously pay premium luxury prices for basic pantry staples on an ongoing basis. This brings us directly to the devastating numbers that the technical glitch accidentally laid bare for the entire world to see, revealing a commercial reality that is considerably worse than even the most cynical royal commentators could have ever predicted. The brand's flagship offering, a curated box trio of luxury fruit spreads retailing at an incredibly steep $42, was revealed to have exactly 137,465 units sitting in storage on January 3rd. 2 days later, after 48 hours of global online traffic, that exact inventory level had only dropped to 137,429 boxes. That means the global empire of the Duchess of Sussex is currently selling a staggering, heartbreaking average of just 25 trio boxes a day across the entire planet. Let that single-digit number truly sink into your mind for a moment, because it does not represent 25,000 boxes, or even 2,500 boxes, but 25 single units a day for a product that was supposed to fly off the shelves. At this current rate of consumption, by the time next summer arrives and the product reaches its strict operational expiry date, there will still be over 123,000 boxes completely untouched, representing over $5 million in retail value that will simply have to be written off as worthless trash. The situation becomes even more terrifying when you look at the secondary product line, the specialized tins of decorative flower sprinkles that were heavily showcased and repeatedly promoted on her associated television program. The digital inventory data showed that these specific tins went from 80,391 units down to 80,368 units over the exact same 2-day period. That translates to an abysmal sales volume of just 11 tins a day worldwide, a rate so incredibly slow that by the time next June rolls around, the vast majority of the manufactured stock will still be sitting in dark warehouses, completely unsold and rapidly expiring. This is the brutal, unforgiving trap of entering the food and beverage industry, a reality that candles or luxury clothing lines simply do not share, because food has a ticking clock attached to it that no amount of clever marketing can pause. A business can easily survive selling high-margin products slowly if the inventory can sit on a shelf for years, but it cannot survive sitting on a massive mountain of perishable inventory with an expiration date bearing down on it like a runaway freight train. This impending jam jar Armageddon is estimated by independent retail analysts to trigger an immediate, catastrophic loss of more than £3.7 million on the jam inventory alone, a massive financial blow that does not even account for the failed investments in wine, clothing, or household goods. For any normal mid-sized business enterprise, a multi-million-pound miscalculation of this magnitude would immediately trigger an emergency board meeting, a complete strategic freeze, and the swift termination of whoever signed off on the original production order. But because this is an operation run with complete absolute control from the top, there was no internal check or balance to stop the bleeding before the warehouses were completely filled to the ceiling with expiring product. Industry insiders have quietly confirmed that early warning signs were visible to nearly everyone involved in the logistical chain months ago, but the corporate culture surrounding the couple has become so intensely insulated that offering realistic feedback or contradicting the official narrative of effortless success was treated as a sign of disloyalty. This pattern of commercial failure is not an isolated incident, but rather the latest and most expensive chapter in a long line of ventures that promised a global kingdom, but delivered little more than public embarrassment and diminishing financial returns. Their highly publicized multi-million-dollar podcast venture fell completely off the cultural charts, drawing intense public criticism for its lack of consistent content before being quietly and abruptly dropped by the platform. Their specialized television programming, which was supposed to solidify their status as premier Hollywood producers, failed entirely to capture a sustainable viewing audience, leaving major executives wondering what exactly they had paid for in the first place. Now, with their flagship lifestyle brand officially in a state of terminal commercial decline, the financial cushion that was supposed to permanently fund their extraordinarily lavish California lifestyle is actively dissolving underneath them. This is the exact moment where the corporate facade completely cracks, because successful, financially stable individuals do not need to aggressively monetize their children's historic titles to sell scented products, nor do they need to scramble for quick checks at minor regional retreats. This is behavior driven entirely by a rapidly mounting financial pressure, an urgent realization that their primary streams of media income are drying up completely, leaving them with an incredibly expensive infrastructure to maintain and no clear plan for what replaces it. To understand exactly why this financial bleed is causing absolute chaos behind the closed doors of the Montecito estate, you have to look at the massive, unwieldy infrastructure that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have built around themselves. This is not a household that can simply tighten its belt, skip a few luxury vacations, and quietly ride out a bad business quarter. They are trapped inside a financial prison of their own design, carrying staggering fixed overheads that run into the millions of dollars every single year without fail. You have a sprawling multi-million-dollar mansion that requires an absolute fortune just to maintain its pristine grounds, a massive, round-the-clock private security detail that operates at a level matching some minor international governments, and a highly demanding lifestyle that was entirely predicated on the assumption of an ever-expanding global media empire. When the hundreds of millions of dollars from those initial post-royal contracts began pouring in, the money was treated as an infinite, everlasting fountain rather than a one-time signing bonus. The lifestyle was scaled up to match a level of wealth that simply had not been permanently secured, and now that the foundation is cracking, the entire structure is beginning to tilt violently. This brings us to the ultimate corporate betrayal, a cold-blooded corporate amputation that has left the Sussexes completely exposed to the elements and entirely on their own. For months, public relations statements have attempted to put a brave face on their evolving media relationships, claiming that the lifestyle brand was simply maturing, evolving, and preparing to step out as an independent powerhouse. But independent analysis of the actual timeline reveals a far more sinister, calculated reality that took place behind the scenes at Netflix headquarters. The streaming giant did not simply decide to gracefully step back and let the brand grow on its own terms. They completely washed their hands of the entire enterprise after looking at the catastrophic inventory data. Sources close to the production network have confirmed that Netflix quietly amputated its financial ties to the lifestyle brand as early as January, handing back every single unit of unsold, rapidly expiring stock to the Duchess's team, full 3 months before any public announcement was ever made to the media. Think about the sheer, unmitigated weight of that decision from a corporate powerhouse like Netflix. Entertainment conglomerates do not walk away from gold mines, nor do they willingly hand back massive mountains of physical product if they believe there is even a remote chance of turning a profit. They looked at the logistics, they looked at the abysmal daily sales figures of 25 units here and 11 units there, and they realized that continuing to underwrite this project was equivalent to throwing millions of dollars straight into a raging California wildfire. By handing back the inventory, Netflix ensured that every single penny of the impending losses, every dollar spent on warehouse storage fees, and every single expired jar of jam would have to be absorbed entirely by the Duchess's own corporate entity. There is no corporate safety net left. No deep-pocketed media savior willing to absorb the multi-million-pound hit, leaving the couple to face an unforgiving retail reality completely alone. This sudden corporate vacuum has completely shattered Prince Harry's sense of security, triggering an intense, escalating wave of stress and strain that is becoming impossible to hide from the public eye. For the past 6 years, Harry has historically deferred entirely to his wife's commercial instincts, trusting her absolute confidence and her Hollywood background to guide their transition from senior working royals to international media moguls. He was led to believe that leaving the structure of the British monarchy behind would unlock a golden era of financial freedom and global influence, a new model of public service fueled by massive commercial triumphs. Instead, he looks around today and finds himself labeled an international laughingstock, trapped in a reality where his family's primary commercial venture has devolved into a failing farmer's market stall. The strain on his face during recent public appearances is not just standard media fatigue. It is the visible, exhausting weight of a man realizing that the grand plan has completely failed, that the multi-million-dollar deals have dried up, and that the financial ground beneath his feet is actively dissolving. The situation becomes even more grim when you look at the actual state of their remaining financial reserves, figures that paint a picture of genuine vulnerability rather than elite wealth. Leaked asset tracking and forensic financial analysis indicate that the absolute cushion standing between this household and serious financial precarity is shockingly small. Reports reveal that their primary permanent investment account, the core safety net meant to fund their family's long-term future, held an active balance that generated a meager $222,000 in interest for the entire year. The total maximum capital they have been utilizing to fund their lifestyle and business experiments sits at roughly $11 million, a number that is facing rapid, aggressive diminishing returns with each passing month. When you are operating a household with annual security and maintenance costs that easily consume multiple millions, a single £3.7 million inventory collapse is not just a disappointing loss, it is a devastating structural crater in your entire survival fund. This is exactly why the phrase broke behavior has transitioned from a harsh internet insult into a precise, quantifiable description of their recent public moves. When a global brand is thriving, its founders do not show up at minor regional retreats to collect modest appearance checks, nor do they engage in the desperate, transparent monetization of historic family titles just to move slow-selling items. You only resort to these frantic, disjointed cash grabs when the numbers on the balance sheet are flashing a bright, urgent red, and when you realize that your primary corporate backing has officially vanished. The scramble to sell has never been more frantic, but the market has already delivered its brutal verdict on the entire endeavor. The initial wave of global interest was never a sign of brand loyalty. It was pure, unadulterated curiosity, a one-time novelty purchase from a public that wanted to see what a royal jam jar looked like, only to realize the product inside was an overpriced, underwhelming commodity that could be bought anywhere for a fraction of the cost. And this is precisely where the global crisis circles right back to the grand stone walls of Buckingham Palace and Clarence House, where King Charles and Prince William are watching the slow-motion car crash unfold from a calculated distance. The ultimate irony of this entire saga is that the King and the Prince of Wales were genuinely deeply rooting for this American commercial project to be a massive success. Their motivation had absolutely nothing to do with forgiveness, reconciliation, or the healing of deep family rifts. It was driven by pure, cold institutional survival. They knew that as long as the Sussexes were making tens of millions of dollars from their own independent California ventures, they would remain firmly on the other side of the Atlantic, busy building their own corporate kingdom and staying completely out of the royal family's hair. A financially stable, independent Harry is an ongoing issue that can be managed from afar. A financially desperate, bankrupted Harry is an absolute institutional nightmare. The nightmare that the palace has spent 2 years quietly dreading is that the multi-million-pound bleed from these failed commercial experiments will inevitably lead to a terrifying, high-stakes begging bowl scenario. For 6 years, the monarchy has maintained a strict, disciplined boundary, cutting off financial support and forcing the couple to fund their own high-altitude lifestyle in Montecito. But if the money runs out completely, if the warehouses full of expiring product cannot be liquidated, and if the investment reserves hit rock bottom, the pressure will inevitably shift right back to London. The palace knows that a severe financial reckoning for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will not stay private. It will explode into a global public spectacle that threatens the prestige of the entire institution. This is the precise tension that is currently keeping senior courtiers awake at night, because arithmetic does not care about pride, it does not care about media statements, and it certainly does not care about an elite lifestyle that has officially outrun its actual income. This exact structural nightmare is what forces us to zoom out and look at the absolute grand finale of this entire California experiment, because beneath the spreadsheets, the tiny sell-through rates, and the rapidly approaching expiration dates, There is a much deeper, far more devastating story unfolding about a total collapse of judgment. The underlying issue here has never truly been about fruit preserves, organic honey, or tins of flour sprinkles rotting in a warehouse. It is about an absolute, systematic inability to accept honest, unflattering feedback before it transforms into a multi-million-dollar public catastrophe. For years, the narrative from Montecito has been built around the idea that the Duchess is a premier, hyper-competent business visionary, whose Midas touch could turn any basic lifestyle commodity into pure luxury gold. But the market has a brutal, unyielding way of separating marketing hype from actual consumer reality, and once that reputation for charging luxury prices for underwhelming, cheaply made novelty items goes out into the real world, the consumer base vanishes and it becomes almost impossible to ever win them back. This is the precise reason why the whispers growing louder within elite Hollywood and royal circles are no longer focused on simple business strategy, but on an impending, catastrophic reckoning that leaves Prince Harry and Meghan Markle with genuinely limited survival options. The dream of establishing a completely self-sustaining, independent corporate kingdom that could permanently fund their hyper-luxurious lifestyle, without any institutional help, has officially run aground on the cold shores of reality. With their remaining investment reserves facing aggressive, month-by-month diminishing returns, and with no deep-pocketed corporate savior like Netflix left in their corner to absorb the massive financial blows, the couple is looking directly into an absolute financial canyon. There is no obvious billionaire benefactor waiting in the wings to write a massive rescue check. No major corporate entity willing to underwrite a strategy that has proven to be completely volatile, leaving the Duchess to face this commercial fallout largely alone, while tied to an incredibly expensive infrastructure that simply refuses to stop costing money. And that brings the entire multi-year saga completely full circle, right back to the quiet, private corridors of Windsor Castle, where King Charles and Prince William are observing the final chapters of this California experiment with a studied, elegant silence. The palace has spent 6 long years maintaining a strict, disciplined institutional distance, refusing to engage with the public drama, while quietly monitoring the financial trajectory of the Sussex household with extreme precision. They always knew that financial desperation has a remarkable, historically proven way of forcing incredibly uncomfortable conversations that pride alone would never permit, and that a total commercial collapse would inevitably change the entire dynamic of the royal rift. Whether the Duchess's immense pride will ever allow her to accept any future version of royal help that comes with strict, absolute institutional conditions attached remains one of the most fascinating, high-stakes open questions left in modern history, because as the ticking clock on those crowded warehouse shelves continues to count down toward next summer, the bill is officially coming due. The glossy Instagram illusions have completely shattered, and the numbers are finally telling the real, unfiltered truth. So here is the question we would genuinely love to hear your thoughts on. Do you think Meghan Markle will ever swallow her pride and release the real verified sales figures for this business? Or do you think the ongoing silence on that particular question tells you absolutely everything you need to know about what is really happening behind those warehouse doors? And after everything you have just heard about this multi-million-pound inventory disaster, do you believe King Charles and Prince William were entirely right to quietly hope this venture would succeed just to keep the Sussexes funded and out of the royal family's hair? Or do you think a part of them is, if we are being completely honest, not entirely surprised that the entire California empire has ended up as a complete commercial collapse? We would absolutely love to know exactly what you think about this entire royal financial meltdown. So do drop your thoughts, your theories, and your predictions in the comments below. This community always brings such a brilliant, thoughtful, and deeply considered perspective to these massive celebrity exposés, and reading through your comments is genuinely one of the highlights of putting these videos together for you each and every day. If you found this investigative breakdown entertaining and want to stay ahead of the next major headline, we would be so incredibly grateful if you would consider hitting that like button right now. It genuinely helps more than you could ever imagine when it comes to beating the algorithm and getting these deep dives in front of the people who care about the unfiltered truth the most. And if you have not already subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications, because there is always another high-stakes scandal unfolding within this family, and we want to make sure you are right back here with us the exact moment the next chapter drops. Thank you as always for spending your valuable time with us today. Stay safe, and we will see you very soon in the next video.